So here's the big question. You're interested in value investing and valuing and evaluating businesses on a deep level, but you don't know how, even after researching for hours, probably dozens of hours, hundreds of hours on the internet, and because nobody else shows you how to do it. This podcast has all those answers and much more about value investing and finance. My name is Jason Rivera. Welcome to Value Investing in Your Car. Hey, Jason here. In today's episode of Value Investing in Your Car, I'm going to show you two charts from my research project that I did, where I researched 3,943 companies' stocks in 73 countries in 40 days. I've been analyzing, looking over the data, and today I want to share with you some of the two charts from that so far. Before I get to that, though, I need to let you know that this episode of Value Investing in Your Car, you can get as a podcast anywhere in the world for free on all major podcasting platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Anchor, and more. You can get this episode along with others in this top 10, 15 value investing podcasts in the world, anywhere in the world for free. Okay. So in March to about probably late April, I researched, underwent a major research project for stocks. First time researching stocks en masse for the first time in 5 years. That happened because of the market crash in mid-March due to the coronavirus. And so I wanted to research a bunch of stocks using my preliminary analysis checklist, which you can get for free below, that allowed me to, this process and that checklist allowed me to research 3,943 companies' stocks in 73 countries and 40 days worldwide. Today, or a couple weeks ago, I told you about that. Today, I'm going to tell you some of the preliminary results from that in two charts. So here's the first chart. This charts out there were 108 companies out of the 3,943 companies. Only 108 I did my full preliminary analysis checklist on. So on the other ones, I did my kind of visual preliminary analysis checklist. Look, only 108 of those, I think that's 2.7%, made it to my full preliminary analysis. So that's my process. That's my first two steps. I do a visual look over my preliminary analysis checklist. Then some companies that breach that or reach higher than the levels on that visual look, then I take a deeper look at it and do the first full run at the company. So these are separated out by country. First thing that probably pops out to you is Japan. 19 of the 108 companies off my list were from Japan. And I'll get to kind of my thoughts on this in a bit, but other countries, of course, USA, France, UAE had 9 countries. They were the third largest, which was a bit surprising to me. Sweden, and then various other countries. You can see the other list, all the way from Australia, all the way up to the USA in terms of alphabetical order. So I look worldwide for companies. If you follow this blog for any amount of time, you know that most companies or most people who evaluate stocks do not. They stick, for example, if they live in the United States and they're born in the U.S., they look at USA stocks. If they were born in and raised in and live in Japan, they look at Japanese stocks. I look at stocks worldwide. Frankly, it just makes more sense to me to look worldwide, and you have the technology available to easily do that now as well. So it doesn't make sense to me to kind of stick in your home area, especially when, for example, the USA is massively overvalued. So what does this mean? Does this mean anything? Does this mean that Japan is the best place to look for stocks right now? Potentially, yes. At least in terms of the total number of companies or stocks from a certain country that reached my list, Japan had the most, is probably a better way to put it. Japan had the most companies on my list. Does that mean they're the best? Not necessarily, which we'll get to in probably next week's video when I talk about valuation. However, Japan, USA, UAE, France, and Sweden, and the UK. In general, Japan, USA, UAE, France, Sweden, and the UK. These make up the majority of all the companies on my watch list, or on the companies that I did my preliminary analysis on. That is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries make up the majority of the list of my preliminary analysis list. This means, again, and I talk about the preliminary analysis checklist below all the time. I will link it below so you can get it again. Does this mean anything? Without the valuation talk, not really. It just means that the companies, again, in general, in these countries, in these 6 countries, fit my personal criteria more. That covers things like healthy balance sheets, high cash flow production, high operating profits, high ROIC, that kind of stuff. Again, on the preliminary analysis checklist. But most of these companies from this list, again, we'll talk about valuation more in next week's video. But most of these, so there's 108 out of 3,943 that I did my full preliminary analysis on. Out of these 108, there are probably between 8 and 15 that I'll buy at some point. I either plan to buy now, or that I'll buy at some point in the near-term future if valuations come down, if I do more research on them and the research comes back good, if their debt levels come down, something like that. The rest of them will go on my watch list. Most of them, unless I just find something completely terrible when I actually analyze their financial reports. Most of the rest of them will go on a watch list, and I'll probably never buy. So, because most of the companies I evaluate, yes, a huge portion of them don't make it to even my full preliminary analysis checklist that I do a worksheet on, because they don't meet my high criteria and my high standards for stocks. The ones that do, most of them fail on the valuation metrics, which, again, we'll talk about next week. So as a percentage, this is the other chart. Sorry about that. This is the other chart. So 17.8%. And again, this is going to be slightly off because there's a country tag up here. I don't know why that is, because it's not up here. And this is the same exact data from here to here, except it's just in absolute numbers here and percentages here. So I don't know why this is here. So these numbers will be slightly off. But Japan makes up 17.8%, almost 20% of all companies that I did my preliminary analysis on were Japanese companies. Another 10% were U.S. UAE, again, that was a surprise to me. 8.4% of companies from my list were from there. Sweden, down at 1.9%. Spain, 5.6%. Goes on from there. So this should give you an idea of where you may look for potential investments. Again, as of right now, based on my criteria, Japan, USA, UAE, Sweden, France, and the UK are the main ones. You can see the rest of the countries here. This is actually, let me count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, 26, 30, 31 countries worldwide make up my 108 stocks that I did a preliminary analysis on. So about half. I did my full preliminary analysis on 73, or was in 73 countries. So these are places worldwide that you may want to look for potential deals right now. You'll see Italy on here. That was surprising to me that Italy only has 2 companies on my list. Based on how horrifically they're getting slammed with coronavirus, I figured their stock market to be massively undervalued. Again, we'll talk more about valuation, but it was not. It wasn't even close by my estimates. Individual stocks, same thing. We're not even close to meeting my criteria. This is important. So you can look here. Valuation, again, which we're going to talk about next week, is even more important because most of these companies will not make my list of companies I may invest in because they are so overvalued. And again, this specifically pertains to Japan because by my estimates, Japanese companies in general are massively overvalued right now, just like most of the rest of the world's countries. Again, talk about valuation next week. Today, I just want to do a quick video talking about this, showing you the kind of early preliminary results from my research project. I'd love to hear where you're finding stocks to potentially invest in or invest in right now. I'd love to hear that. Does it mesh with my kind of data? Is it something out of the box? Again, you don't have to tell me the company name. I wouldn't expect that. But I'd love to hear where you're looking for stocks, where you're finding cheap stocks, or potentially, again, cheap stocks relatively to the market still being massively overvalued as of this recording. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, love, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified anytime we release a new video, and we're releasing new videos all the time. Again, next week, specifically, we're going to talk about valuation in these countries. So we can kind of, again, hone down on this data to see where potentially may be a good idea to find from. You'll get that video and all our other videos as they release if you subscribe and hit the notification bell. Make sure to listen to this as a podcast anywhere in the world for free on all major podcasting platforms. Let me know your thoughts on this data. Again, I'd love to hear where you're searching for companies in the comments section below. And until next time, I'll talk to you next week. And have a great day. Talk soon.